Order, please. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to notice of motion given by me on March the 21st, 2007, and the rules and forms of procedure of the House of Assembly, I have the honor by command to present a message from Her Honor, the Lieutenant Governor of the Province of Nova Scotia, relating to the estimate of sums required for the service of the province for the fiscal year ending March the 31st, 2008, which is, I hereby transmit estimates of sums required for the public service of the province for the year ending March 31st, 2008, and in accordance with the Constitution Act 1867, recommend them, together with the budget address of my Minister of Finance, and any resolutions or bills necessary or advisable to approve the estimates and implement the budget measures to the House of Assembly. It is signed Mayanne Francis, Lieutenant Governor, and is dated March the 23rd, 2007. Mr. Speaker, at this time I wish to table the message from Her Honor the Lieutenant Governor transmitting the estimates for the consideration of this House. Table the government business plan, table the estimate books, table the Crown Corporation business plans, table the estimate and Crown Corporation business plan resolutions, deliver my budget speech, and move that the estimate of sums required for the service of the province for the fiscal year ending March the 31st, 2008, being supplied to be granted to Her Majesty, and the Crown Corporation business plans be referred to the Committee of the Whole House on Supply.
Documents are tabled.
Mr. Speaker, before I begin my budget address, I would like to make some introductions. First of all, I would like to introduce in the Speaker's Gallery today some people who are very special to me. First of all, my mother and father, Gilbert and Barbara Baker, my wife, Cindy Baker, my two sons, Matthew and Daniel, who I am pleased to say are becoming experts now in the ways of the House, perhaps against their will. My brother, Peter, and sister-in-law, Paula, my niece, Samantha, and my nephews, Alex, Andrew, and Stephen. I would also ask them to rise and receive the welcome of the House. Mr. Speaker, in the East Gallery, I have also here today, I guess they're not in the East Gallery, but they're in the Speaker's Gallery as well. I have today some staff from my constituency office, and that would be Ginny Penny and Dale Keddy, and also my executive assistants, Kim Langell and Jeff Garber, all of whom provide me with great support every day. Mr. Speaker, I would also like to take time to recognize all of the staff from the Department of Finance and all the staff from the Treasury Board who helped me prepare this year's budget. In particular, I'd like to thank Vicki Harnish, Deputy Minister of Finance, Liz Cody, Assistant Deputy Minister of Finance, Margaret MacDonald, Assistant Deputy Minister of Treasury and Policy Board, also Kathy Shaw and Donna Chislett, who have been very involved with budget communications this year. And I know there's a number of other people from the department are there, and they've all been very helpful in the preparation of this year's budget, and I'd like to give them a round of applause to acknowledge that. Mr. Speaker, getting a budget ready is a monumental task in every year, but I think it's fair to say, at least for this group of staff, that 2007 will be a budget year to remember. I would also ask for you to, thank you. I would also like to thank those people who are not able to be here today in the House, but who, Mr. Speaker, have worked on this process. Mr. Speaker, I rise in the House of Assembly to present the province of Nova Scotia's 2007-2008 budget. Mr. Speaker, this is a good budget for Nova Scotia. It is a budget that is focused on today and tomorrow. It is an effective plan, one that advances the Premier's vision for the new Nova Scotia, one that will create winning conditions through a globally competitive business climate, workforce, and connections, one where we can seize new economic opportunities by being a leader in information technology, research and development, innovation, and in the clean and green economy, and one that will support Nova Scotians in their effort to become healthier and more active in safe, accessible communities, neighborhoods, and workplaces. Mr. Speaker, the budget is disciplined and it is strategic. We have contained costs. At the same time, we are making significant investments in this province and its people that will create opportunities for many years to come. Mr. Speaker, Nova Scotia has had good financial results in recent years, and we will see that continue. That is why we have made debt reduction one of our top priorities for today's budget. Nova Scotia's debt was built up through the 1980s and 1990s as successive governments ran annual operating deficits, sometimes in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Every year, those governments borrowed a lot of money just to pay the bills, and they left behind a massive debt. It has taken many years of hard work to reverse the damage to our finances. In 2000, we passed a law requiring balanced budgets in Nova Scotia. We have produced surpluses in each of the last 5 years, all of which went straight to the debt. In 2005, we received $830 million from the Government of Canada for the hard-fought offshore accord, and we chose to apply it to the debt. In the same year, we created the Debt Reduction Plan with a goal to start bringing down the debt this fiscal year. Mr. Speaker, this work is now paying dividends. We have reduced annual net debt servicing costs from $890 million in 2004-2005 to an estimated $840.8 million in 2007-2008. That's okay. In addition, Nova Scotia's net direct debt as a percentage of gross domestic product has also declined from 46.8% to a forecasted 38.1% for March the 31st, 2007. Simply put, Mr. Speaker, we have more money to spend on our programs now that less money is spent on interest payments. However, we still have work to do. Nova Scotians still carry among the highest debt per capita in the country. And that's why we are focusing on debt reduction now. Mr. Speaker, debt reduction is not an easy thing to do, but it's the right thing to do. It's time to start paying the bill on behalf of all Nova Scotians. And we must create the right conditions in Nova Scotia to pay it off completely on behalf of our children. We are on the right financial track, Mr. Speaker, to do that. But the Government of Canada has failed to fix the fiscal imbalance. This despite their pledge to fix the fiscal imbalance in this country. Despite their promise and obligation to allow Nova Scotians to use our own offshore revenues to continue on the road to self-sufficiency. Measures in the federal budget will widen not close the gap that exists between the richer and poorer provinces in this country. The new federal equalization formula essentially forces Nova Scotia to give up a portion of potential future revenues that were guaranteed under the Offshore Accord. And new methods of allocating other federal transfers based on a cash amount per capita actually favor the more populous provinces like Alberta and Ontario, the ones that already have a far greater fiscal capacity relative to Nova Scotia. The best example of this is the Canada Social Transfer, which is used to cover the cost of higher education and social services. The federal government will increase national CST funding for post-secondary education by $800 million in 2008-2009. But Nova Scotia will see only $6 million more. The federal government has technically given us options for equalization this year. We can either stay with the existing formula and get less, or elect to take the new formula and take increased revenues in the short term. But really, it's not much of a choice. We must take the important increase in federal funding this year. Otherwise, we would be forced to dramatically raise taxes or cut programs. Mr. Speaker, we are continuing discussions with the federal government and are prepared to look at all options available to us before we have to formalize our choice later this year. We also welcome the unanimous all-party support we received in the House this week, calling on the Prime Minister to honor the true intent of our Atlantic Accord. We will require the support of Nova Scotians to challenge the formula's unfairness. As the Premier has stated, we will continue to fight vigorously to restore the Atlantic Accord. Mr. Speaker, we are fortunate that Nova Scotia has had good economic results in recent years. We are proud of the responsible fiscal management that has created good, solid opportunities for Nova Scotians. A total of 46,000 jobs have been created since July 1999, and employment reached a record high of 450,800 in February 2007. Unemployment is expected to remain steady at 8.0%. And, Mr. Speaker, the outlook remains positive. We expect real growth of 2.3% along with low interest rates and inflation. Nova Scotia will benefit from healthy Canadian and U.S. economies and revenues from offshore energy investment. Exports of goods and services are expected to increase by 3.5% this year. Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to report that our strong economy and good financial management have allowed us to end the current fiscal year with positive results. We are forecasting a surplus for 2006-2007 for the 5th year in a row. That surplus is forecast to be $98.5 million, allowing us to make a substantial payment on the debt once again. Total net expenses in 2006-2007 went up $29 million to $6.9 billion. This was mainly due to higher program and pension expenses, and these were offset by savings in debt servicing costs. Meanwhile, total revenues are forecast to rise to $6.627 billion. Mr. Speaker, government made a choice last year to increase our capital spending budget. We invested a total of $406.4 million on capital projects, adding $71.4 million to the original appropriation of $335 million for tangible capital assets, also known as TCA. This allowed the province to move more quickly with much needed road work and school construction, and to take advantages of opportunities to acquire new Crown land. This extra capital spending resulted in a higher net direct debt for 2006-2007 compared to our original budget. Mr. Speaker, we have established a number of objectives for this fiscal year, and I am happy to report to the House we have met them. Our budget is balanced for the 6th year in a row. Good, yeah. Good premium. Mr. Speaker, our debt reduction plan is on track. And perhaps most important, we are providing sufficient resources to fund the key programs and services that citizens rely on. And we're doing it without increasing income taxes or cutting programs. Mr. Speaker, we are making sufficient investments now to ensure our province prospers in the future. The 2007-2008 budget will see total net program spending of $6.38 billion, up 6.5% over last year. This represents significant and substantial investment. The Department of Health spending will increase to $2.91 billion. Spending on education, including assistance to universities of $250.8 million, will total $1.439 billion in 2007-2008. That is a 5.4% increase over last year's budget. And, Mr. Speaker, the budget for community services is $781.8 million, a full $37 million or 4.5% higher than last year. Mr. Speaker, spending on tangible capital assets is estimated at $254 million. Our net direct debt for 2007-2008 is estimated to be $12.414 billion, $20 million lower than budgeted in 2006-2007. That's a good thing, isn't it? Right. We anticipate total ordinary revenues of $7.03 billion in 2007-2008. This is $440.7 million, or 6.7% higher than last year's budget. Mr. Speaker, we are projecting a surplus of $118.4 million. This surplus is necessary to meet our debt reduction target. Now, Mr. Speaker, we considered many scenarios in planning this budget, including some less positive than the end result. We are not increasing income taxes either for individuals or businesses, and in fact have been able to move forward with the decreases promised in last year's budget. However, we are undertaking a number of measures to offset significant increases in operating expenses. Mr. Speaker, our government pension plan must be adequately funded to ensure employees get the benefits they are entitled to when they retire. Recent actuarial assessments of the Public Services Superannuation Plan indicate that contributions to the plan are not keeping up with the cost of services. We will therefore increase contributions by 2.4% of salary costs effective April the 1st of this year The cost of this increase will be shared equally by the employer and the employees. Mr. Speaker, the Government of Nova Scotia will increase most user fees and government charges by 6.8%, effective in most cases on April the 1st, 2007. The last government-wide increase in user fees and government charges was in April 2004. This measure will help offset the overall rising costs of government programs and services. This amount is tied to inflation over the last 3 years. In addition, Mr. Speaker, I want to inform the House that we will support legislation to provide notification to the House and an opportunity for discussion regarding any future increase in existing user fees. Government continues with ongoing measures to reduce tobacco consumption according to the provincial tobacco strategy. Effective today, the province will increase tobacco taxes, 1 cent per cigarette or the equivalent of $2 per carton, 1 cent on the pre-proportioned tobacco sticks, and 1 cent per gram on fine cut tobacco. Effective today, the province will increase the tax rate applied to fuels used in aircraft from 0.9 cents per liter to 2.5 cents per liter. This will bring Nova Scotia's aviation fuel tax rate in line with other provinces. The increase is expected to generate an additional $2.4 million in revenue to the province. We are very conscious of the need to make Nova Scotia's tax system more competitive with the rest of the country. We are making Nova Scotia a more attractive place to live and to do business. With this in mind, we will proceed with a series of measures to ease the tax burden faced by Nova Scotians and to encourage business investment. Mr. Speaker, our government demonstrated last year that we take very seriously the impact on Nova Scotians of increasing energy and heating costs. The Your Energy Rebate Program, announced in last year's budget, was started a month early to ensure that Nova Scotians would realize greater benefit for this program during the winter heating season. This program rebates to consumers the equivalent of the provincial portion of the HST on a variety of energy products, including electricity and home heating oil. This year's budget will cover the full annual cost of the program, leaving $68.2 million in the pockets of Nova Scotians and easing the financial burden of about 400,000 families. As promised in last year's budget, we will move forward with an increase to Nova Scotia's basic personal exemption and other provincial tax credits. These changes will put approximately $20 million back in the hands of taxpayers this year. The basic personal amount exempted from personal income tax will be $7,481 in 2007, $250 more than last year. There will also be a 6% increase in other non-refundable tax credits, including the spousal amount, dependent amount, pension amount, disability amount, and the caregiver amount. Mr. Speaker, we want to encourage our university and college graduates to remain in Nova Scotia to work after graduation. Therefore, we are doubling the graduate tax credit to $2,000 in 2008. Total tax relief for graduates is expected to cost $10.9 million in 2007, 2008. That's a good thing. Yeah, that's a very good one. Pretty good, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. We are also following through on our promise to reduce the large corporation tax to 0.225% this year and to eliminate the tax by 2012. We are introducing a digital media tax credit to support digital media producers and encourage them to hire Nova Scotian workers. The intent is to give these companies a 35% credit on eligible Nova Scotia expenditures, similar to the one provided for film production in Nova Scotia. Mr. Speaker, as promised, the province will introduce a refundable tax credit for volunteer firefighters for the 2007 taxation year in recognition of the essential role they play in our rural communities. That credit will be $250 in 2007 and will increase to $375 in 2008 and to $500 in 2009. Yeah, that'll be a good one, won't it, Chris? Yes, yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Not many volunteer firefighters were there. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's right, yeah. Yeah, stand up, yeah. Yeah. Volunteer firefighters across the province will collectively receive an estimated $2.3 million benefit in their 2007 taxes. Mr. Speaker, this is cash in their pockets. To restore the competitive advantage to Nova Scotia's tour and convention industry, government will introduce a provincial program to parallel the Foreign Convention and Tour Incentive Program announced by the Government of Canada on March 19th. Right, Lynn? Mr. Speaker, over the next year, we will work with the Canada Revenue Agency to develop a means of recognizing, for tax credit purposes, additional groups of medical professionals, such as naturopaths, whose services are part of a course of medical treatment. Mr. Speaker, the new Nova Scotia will be a strong player in the global economy. This budget is about focusing on what we do best in Nova Scotia. We want to do it better than anyone else and to look to both the short and the long term. It's about creating the winning conditions for prosperity, seizing new economic opportunities, and building active, vibrant, and healthy communities. Mr. Speaker, in order to position Nova Scotia to compete globally, we must invest in areas where we have solid foundations that lend themselves to future growth and that give our businesses and our people the support and encouragement they need. Mr. Speaker, the link between living a healthy lifestyle and enjoying good health is undeniable. If we want Nova Scotians to practice good health habits, we must provide places for them to be physically active, enjoy recreation, and play sports. Just over 2 weeks ago, the province and our partners at HRM reached the disappointing but necessary decision to withdraw our bid for the 2014 Commonwealth Games. It was a prudent financial decision. However, it served to highlight the need for more and better recreation facilities in Nova Scotia. Too many communities rely on facilities that were built in the 1950s and 60s and can no longer meet their growing needs. Mr. Speaker, I am announcing today that our government is embarking on a 10-year, $50 million program to build, replace, and upgrade recreation facilities in Nova Scotia. That is a good thing. Yeah, that's a good thing. There you are. That's a good thing. Yeah, yeah, that's right. This program will be equally cost shared with municipalities and communities, which could bring the investment in our communities to $150 million over the next 10 years. With the existing $3 million recreational facilities development program, this will mean $8 million in provincial funding alone available for 2007-2008. Mr. Speaker, growing the economy requires continued planning and solid investment in infrastructure. Since 1999, we have made significant progress in improving and enhancing our roads and highways, our schools, hospitals, and technological infrastructure. We have made important land purchases, preserving natural spaces that Nova Scotians value. We will build on that progress this year. We will spend more than $254 million on tangible capital assets for Nova Scotians and another $38 million in grants to district health authorities to address hospital needs across the province. A total of $145 million is earmarked for highway construction in 2007-2008. This includes continued work on the twinning of Highway 101 and of Highway 104 between New Glasgow and Sullivan's River. There will also be more upgrading in Trunk 4 between St. Peters and Sydney. In addition to new construction, $186 million is dedicated to road maintenance this year. Asphalt patching, ditching and graveling, and smaller improvements such as intersections and signals, small bridge repairs, and repaving. Mr. Speaker, it is also important to recognize the importance of carrying out any development in an environmentally sound manner. While the development of a bypass to connect highways 102 and 103 near the Hammonds Plains and Sheldrake Lake areas is still at the proposal stage, we intend to move forward with an environmental study on the Blue Mountain Grove Wilderness area. Yes, thank you. Mr. Speaker, we continue to invest in infrastructure to support the education of our children with $58.5 million more this year in healthy, sustainable school facilities. We will complete construction of 2 new schools, Harborside, Robert Jameson, and Citadel High. Continue construction of 2 new school projects, Musquodoboit High and Harmony Heights Elementary. And begin construction on 4 new school projects, Stewiacke East Elementary, Truro South Elementary, Oxford High, and Northside Elementary. The Additions and Alterations program will enhance or replace major school building components in 11 schools this year to address building condition and environmental and program issues. Mr. Speaker, we have committed just over $18 million to improve government buildings and provide essential services to the public, including construction of new justice centers in Lunenburg County and in Yarmouth County, construction improvement to provincial buildings in Stellarton and Lunenburg, and repairs on historic Government House. Mr. Speaker, I want to inform the House today that as we move forward, we are committed to all provincially owned buildings in Nova Scotia being barrier-free for public access by 2020. Mr. Speaker, infrastructure investment is no longer as simple as bricks and mortar. It also includes the networks that fuel business transactions and connect us to markets around the world. We are making important commitments to the continued development of our information technology systems on a number of levels. This year, government IT projects totaling $10.87 million will be funded to enhance efficiency and improve services to Nova Scotia. They include continued implementation of a common health administration system for Nova Scotia district health authorities, a comprehensive IT application called Panorama that will help public health professionals with managing public health information, particularly in a crisis, a case management system to improve client service delivery at community services, an integrated system to improve services to customers at Service Nova Scotia and municipal relations, and a $225,000 for a new database for field staff conducting food safety inspections. Mr. Speaker, investing in technology is a tangible way to build a sustainable and competitive Nova Scotia. It benefits every citizen, business, and community. This year, we will be investing $10 million to begin bringing broadband access to every area of the province by the end of 2009. That's a very good thing. I think it's a very good yes, I understand. What? Yeah, that's right. Daryl didn't rise. Mr. Speaker, the work has already begun. A pilot project in Cumberland County has brought wireless technology to a number of communities. This project will help us develop a model to achieve broadband access that is both commercially viable and sustainable. This is important, Mr. Speaker, because we understand IT infrastructure connects Nova Scotia to the world. It helps strengthen and diversify our economic base. To further this development, the province will invest in innovation for small and medium-sized businesses, particularly in rural Nova Scotia. We will provide financial assistance to support investments in new applications, technology, and equipment by expanding the I3 program administered through InnovaCorp. All told, these investments are worth $1.2 million. Mr. Speaker, we are working to create winning conditions through a globally competitive business climate, workforce, and connections. In the not-too-distant future, a North American trade and transportation gateway to Europe and Western Asia will be developed somewhere on the east coast of this continent. We are working to ensure that the Atlantic Gateway is established here in Nova Scotia. Very good thing. The Atlantic Gateway represents a once-in-a-generation opportunity to create the conditions for long-lasting prosperity and economic growth. Mr. Speaker, we are pleased to see the federal government making funds available in its budget for gateway projects, and it is fitting that they should, as this is a national, not a regional undertaking. However, Mr. Speaker, it is important that we maximize our own efforts to seize the opportunity. This year, the government will spend $1 million to develop and advance the Atlantic Gateway. It is well known that in every state and province in North America, governments are actively involved in job creation and encouraging business development. Since its inception, Nova Scotia Business Inc. has created and maintained close to 18,000 jobs with a potential total payroll impact of about $600 million. The direct tax impact to Nova Scotia is $70 million each and every year. Last year, as an example, NSBI attracted 4 of the world's leading financial services and insurance companies to Nova Scotia. This year, NSBI will build on its success and begin to implement a new 5-year plan for business attraction that will guide the organization through 2012. We have also made changes to the eligibility criteria for the payroll rebate program for small and medium-sized businesses, which reduced the number of jobs required by half, from 50 to 25, as an incentive to business investment, particularly in rural Nova Scotia. And, Mr. Speaker, we hope to be able to lower that number even further in future budget years. Nova Scotia Economic Development will also continue good work this year to support job creation and research and development in Nova Scotia. Over the past 3 years, some 3,600 jobs have been created or maintained through investments made by the Industrial Expansion Fund. As well, we will provide more funding this year to Research and Innovation Trust for world-class research projects like the Atlantic Computational Excellence Network and the Brain Repair Center. Mr. Speaker, we will also increase our student employment program by $800,000 this year to a total of $2.3 million. Mr. Speaker, this means more new jobs for Nova Scotians, bringing the total to more than 600 students working here in Nova Scotia. And, Mr. Speaker, we will invest $750,000 to revive Nova Scotia's Winter Works program, which will offer subsidies to businesses, municipalities, and not-for-profits to allow them to hire unemployed individuals. This has the potential to provide hundreds of jobs across the province and help create economic activity in areas of high unemployment. Opportunities for Sustainable Prosperity 2006 sets Nova Scotia on an economic development path that integrates economic, social, and environmental systems. We know our offshore offers Nova Scotia good business opportunities. This year, we will pursue a new strategic offshore marketing plan that will showcase offshore opportunities to prospective investors and put new geological ideas in front of both current and potential explorers. To build the opportunity this year, we are providing $250,000 to digitize and process our government-owned Sable Area seismic data. To enhance productivity and opportunities in the agricultural and fisheries sectors, we are investing in more research. This year, we will provide an additional $50,000 for lobster research programs and $175,000 for salmon research at the Margaree River Hatchery. In addition, farmers who are retiring debts incurred under the Ruminant Loan Program and the Pork Nova Scotia Loan Program will be eligible for $6.2 million in grants beginning in April of 2007. Yeah, that's a good thing. It's a good thing, isn't it, Ronnie? Yeah. Mr. Speaker, agriculture in Nova Scotia has no greater friend than the honourable member for Colchester and Musquodoboit Valley. Our colleague, the Minister of Agriculture, is a passionate and persistent advocate for Nova Scotia's agricultural producers. He articulated to government a compelling picture of the many challenges faced by Nova Scotia's pork producers. We all wish he was able to hear this budget presented today. The provincial hog industry has experienced a number of issues in recent years, including excess supply in North America, the strong Canadian dollar, and rising production costs. The industry's fundamental disadvantage continues to be transportation costs for feed grain. That's why we're providing an additional $500,000 to Nova Scotia's pork producers to assist in income support to help them make the transition to profitability. A good thing. Yeah. 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 Hey. What? Yeah. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I want to be clear. The government is committed to supporting Nova Scotia's agriculture industry as it moves forward toward greater prosperity and self-sufficiency. In fact, we will hire industry liaison officers who will work with the farming community to address pressing issues in the agricultural industry. And finally, Mr. Speaker, we want to encourage Nova Scotians to continue to support their own farming and fishing industries. This year, we have allocated $250,000 to establish a marketing program designed to encourage Nova Scotians to buy local. That's a very, very good thing. Yeah. Yeah, there you are. Yeah. There's room over here. There's room for clarity. Yeah. One at a time. Mr. Speaker, for Nova Scotia to truly succeed, we must have a competitive environment for doing business. Government must work with the business community to foster innovation, creativity, and resourcefulness. Mr. Speaker, we are very pleased about the progress we have made through a number of better regulation initiatives underway across government. This includes the $900,000 Competitiveness and Compliance Initiative to help businesses and other organizations comply with provincial laws and regulations. In addition, government will also invest $100,000 this year in BizPal, an online service that makes it easier for businesses to find and apply for permits and licenses by the business sector. We will also take initiatives. We are also taking initiatives, new approaches to traditional industry sectors, actively marketing our assets and identifying new opportunities. We will spend $2.5 million more for tourism marketing and product development. This is consistent with our new tourism plan, new realities, new directions, and it's developed in conjunction with the industry through the Tourism Partnership. Here. Yeah. There you are. Len's happy. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. This funding, together with additional investment in marketing and attractions, will create more opportunities for our tourism sector. In agriculture, we are providing $750,000 to the Strategic Infrastructure Investment Fund, which supports and promotes good business management and market readiness in the agricultural sector. Mr. Speaker, the province's investment in the education of its people at all stages of their lives is at the heart of its strategy for a vibrant, prosperous, and sustainable Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia's public school system addresses the needs of primary students experiencing school for the first time through high school students preparing for their lives as adults. This year, government will invest an additional $34 million in Nova Scotia's public education system, an increase of 5.2% per student. Mr. Speaker, to accommodate our youngest learners, we will continue our pre-primary pilot this year, while moving forward with a study of the needs involved with moving Nova Scotia's grade primary age eligibility from September 31st to December 31st of the school year. We will implement the change in time for the 2008-2009 school year. There you are, yeah. We will also continue to invest in the health and well-being of future generations by supporting physical education programming at all grade levels. This year, another $300,000 is being committed to hiring more phys ed teachers across the province of Nova Scotia. Yeah. Yeah, he's busy yet. We have one that's busy. As for older students, we will enhance our commitment to the Options and Opportunity Program, giving high school students a greater choice in identifying the educational path that best suits their interest and future career plans. This year, we will invest up to $1.3 million to further expand choices for hands-on learning in the area of vocational and composite programming. Mr. Speaker, when implemented, the new program will offer students opportunity for trade-specific learning in the areas of metal, wood, plumbing and pipe fitting, and electrical work. And, Mr. Speaker, completing our commitment to supporting families whose children have specific needs that cannot be met within the regular school system, the province is also allocating $350,000 to providing funding for a permanent third year of tuition support. This program enables these students to benefit from specialized expertise that is available at a designated private school for up to 3 years. Tuition support is one of our many Learning for Life initiatives that will help students with special needs. This year, we will also complete the implementation of the Black Learners Advisory Council report. We are investing an additional $1.6 million to ensure that the good work of this group continues to enhance learning opportunities and outcomes for the province's African Nova Scotian student population. Mr. Speaker, we continue to work with our school boards, our partners in education, to complete the transition to a new school-based funding formula with the allocation this year of $2.35 million to that process. In 2007-2008, the Halifax Regional School Board, the South Shore Regional School Board, and the CSAP will benefit fully from the transition to the new funding formula recommended by the Haag report. Mr. Speaker, another key aspect of Nova Scotia's lifelong education system is the emphasis on ensuring workforce needs to grow its economy. Government continues to make significant strategic investments in education and skills training to develop a skilled workforce in Nova Scotia. This year is no exception. Total provincial funding for post-secondary education has grown from $340.2 million in 2003-2004 to $447.2 million in 2007-2008. There you are. Yes. This includes funding to universities, the Nova Scotia Community College, spending on skills and apprenticeship programs, and supports to students. Mr. Speaker, this year overall, the Nova Scotia Community College system will receive an additional $13.5 million, an increase of 15.3%. This includes $4.84 million to increase 591 more student seats across Nova Scotia, with a particular focus in the area of skilled trades and information technology. In addition, recognizing that skilled tradespeople are in tremendous demand, we are investing $3.6 million in strengthening Nova Scotia's apprenticeship training system and making it accessible to more people. Nova Scotia's skilled trades workforce will play an important role in the province's economic growth over the coming years. And this is an area of tremendous employer demand. In the area of university education, we are increasing our funding in this year's budget by $22.9 million, or 10.1%, to ensure that more Nova Scotians can enjoy the benefits of higher education. Mr. Speaker, $12.5 million of these funds will be used to offset the 3.9% tuition increase scheduled for 2007-2008 school year. This will result in a tuition freeze at September 2006 school levels for most Canadian students and an equivalent reduction in tuition rates increased for medical, dental, law, and international students. And, Mr. Speaker, we are providing an additional $11.6 million, which will be used to provide a student bursary of $500 for Nova Scotian residents attending Nova Scotian University. Yeah, that's a good thing, right? They forgot. This is the next step in this government's commitment to bring Nova Scotians' tuition rates in line with the national average by the 2010-2011 school year. And, Mr. Speaker, the province is further investing to help students access affordable loans to help finance their university education. As a result of last year's reduced parental contribution amount and changes to the formulas used to calculate student loan eligibility, we anticipate issuing $2 million more in student loans this year. At the same time, the province will introduce a new repayment assistance program that will help graduates who are having difficulty repaying their loans reduce their expected payments to more manageable levels. And the province will begin shortly to directly fund the Nova Scotia Student Loan Program in order to provide lower interest rates to student borrowers. Finally, Nova Scotia is introducing a new multi-year needs-based grants program in 2007-2008 to help students from low-income families to fund their second, their third, their fourth, or their fifth years of their studies. They forgot to get up. Mr. Speaker, good quality health care remains a priority for Nova Scotians, and indeed for all Canadians. This year we are committing almost $3 billion on health and health promotion and protection, more than ever before. Health care spending has increased by over 8% per year over the past decade. In this budget, we have to balance not only the needs within the health system, but also the competing and equally important needs of all government services. So this year, we have limited the increase in health care spending to 5.3%. That being said, we are providing sufficient funding to maintain the existing health care programs and services that Nova Scotians count on every day, while increasing investments in priority areas such as home care, long-term care, oncology, and equipment and infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, we invest more every year in cancer treatment and supports. We have purchased equipment such as linear accelerators and MRIs, and last year funded 3 new oncologists for this province. We have expanded oncology clinics for Inverness, Antigonish, New Glasgow, and Yarmouth, and investing to provide a new oncologist for Kentville, so patients can receive care close to home. Mr. Speaker, we've also invested in new digital screening equipment and a central booking system to increase access to mammography screening and to assist women in getting more accurate test results sooner. This budget will augment the existing measures. Mr. Speaker, we will invest $300,000 to develop and establish a colorectal screening program as recommended by Cancer Care Nova Scotia. There you are. We will add another $2.7 million, primarily for oncology operations at Capital Health and the Cape Breton District Health Authority. This investment will help expand staffing to better respond to the needs of patients and their families. This includes RNs, radiation therapists, social workers, and other support staff. Mr. Speaker, one of the government's goals is to make Nova Scotia a safe and healthy place to live, work, and raise families. We are committed to renewing the public health system, in part through a larger budget for the Department of Health Promotion and Protection. This year, we'll appoint a public health leader, develop a population health assessment and surveillance responsibility center, a public population health assessment and surveillance responsibility center, and work on coordinated and comprehensive emergency preparedness and response plans. This will add to our knowledge about the threats and opportunities we face as we proactively look to improve our health standing. Mr. Speaker, immunization is a cornerstone of modern public health, and it is fundamental to building a healthier Nova Scotia. In fact, immunization is a proven and effective way to prevent many forms of childhood and adult diseases. Government has an obligation to protect Nova Scotians, when possible, from preventable diseases. Nova Scotian women suffer from the highest incidence of invasive cervical cancer in Canada. The human papilloma virus causes almost all cervical cancers and kills about 400 Canadian women each year. But there is a new hope in the fight against this disease. A vaccine has been developed that is proven to decrease the incidence of cervical cancer. And Mr. Speaker, we will begin an HPV immunization program for young women in Nova Scotia this year. Working within a federal program, we will spend almost $3 million to vaccinate girls and young women as part of our school-based immunization program. The HPV vaccine will form an integral part of our provincial immunization program and will support our overall goal of making Nova Scotians as healthy as possible. Strengthening environmental health protection is a key component of improving public health. And, Mr. Speaker, government will add close to $755,000 more to environmental health protection activities across the province. This provides funding for more inspectors and other staff to promote food and drinking water safety standards. We know that for many Nova Scotians, being healthy means relying on prescription medication. And for some, paying for medication is a burden. That is why we are making significant commitment of $189.6 million this year to pharmacare. This includes $134.9 million for seniors pharmacare, about $2 million more than last year. $52.7 million for pharmacare for income assistance recipients and their dependents. $2 million in pharmacare for children of low-income parents. Mr. Speaker, we will spend an additional $5 million this year to develop a new publicly subsidized prescription drug insurance program for working families. This expansion will almost double the number of Nova Scotian families who are eligible for pharmacare. Mr. Speaker, like other Canadians, we value a quality health care system with access to care by excellent caregivers. Investment in these healthcare workers represents nearly 3/4 of the health budget and is a major contributor to rising healthcare costs. We are proud to have funded significant increases in wages, health benefits, and pensions over the last decade. In fact, in most cases, our healthcare workers are leading their counterparts in Atlantic Canada when it comes to compensation. This year, we will spend an additional $45.6 million to cover negotiated settlements for wages, salaries, and benefits in the healthcare sector. Mr. Speaker, Seniors are the fastest growing segment of Nova Scotia's population, and we have a large number of people with disabilities. In this, the second year of our continuing care strategy, we will develop and expand a number of services and programs to serve the needs of our seniors. Firstly, Mr. Speaker, through this year we will establish a Department of Seniors which will advocate, develop policy, and coordinate programs for our senior citizens. We will add $800,000 to the budget for seniors, bringing funding for seniors to $2 million as we undertake this new development. That's right. Other commitments include $3 million to expand respite programs that will provide relief to caregivers, enabling them to continue to provide care. $2 million for a provincial adult day program to enable caregivers to continue care for family members and others. Plans to create 832 new long-term care beds and work with service providers to replace an additional 721 beds in aging facilities, and $4 million for the expanded home repair adaptation program to help seniors make repairs and innovation toward health and safety issues in their home. Very good. Yes, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Eligibility. Mr. Speaker, many seniors simply need a helping hand to remain in their own homes instead of moving to a seniors facility, sometimes away from their communities. Government will provide $800,000 this year for the Department of Community Services to launch a pilot program that will provide funds to help caregivers looking after ailing loved ones in their own homes. This could mean the difference between staying in the family home or moving to a care facility. Yeah, that's a good thing. Yeah, that's right. We also intend to improve accessibility and mobility for seniors who live in senior citizens housing units. We will install 13 new elevators in buildings across the province to improve the quality of life and mobility for many living in seniors housing. Mr. Speaker, providing assistance for those who have special needs or disabilities is a key role of government, and we recognize that adults with disabilities have different needs based on their own individual circumstances. To help them, supports are provided to allow them to stay in their homes, to live independently, or with the help of another family. This year, we are providing an additional $2.2 million to community services to make their programs and services available to more individuals with disabilities. This funding will improve client service delivery and better meet the needs of Nova Scotians with disabilities who depend on their support. We will also embark on a new program to help families make their homes more accessible to wheelchairs. Nova Scotians will be able to make improvements to their homes to enhance accessibility for themselves or loved ones. Currently, applications for funding are made after an individual becomes disabled, which may be appropriate if the disability is the result of an unforeseeable accident or sudden illness. But the approach isn't ideal for a person who loses mobility as a result of a long-standing condition. Mr. Speaker, this year we will change this program to allow Nova Scotians who require a wheelchair in the near future to get the help they need sooner to make their home accessible. We will increase income limits by 30%, from $30,000 to $39,000, to allow a greater number of Nova Scotians to take advantage of this assistance. The maximum amount of assistance is also increasing by 66%, from $3,000 to $5,000, making more extensive work possible. Mr. Speaker, this week we have made clear our commitment to our environment. At every opportunity, this government will make decisions that protect our environment and enhance our environmental practices. The Environmental Goals and Sustainable Prosperity Bill explicitly recognizes that the province's environmental assets are the foundation of its long-term prosperity. It has a broad goal of making Nova Scotia's environment the cleanest and most sustainable in the world by 2020, and commits the government to implementing Nova Scotia's growth strategy, Opportunities for Sustainable Development. There you are. Specific measures relate to greenhouse gases, sulfur dioxide emissions, wastewater treatment facility discharge, targets for renewable energy resources, and protection of wetlands. It is among the most ambitious commitments to the environment in the country. Mr. Speaker, the world has long recognized the energy potential in the Bay of Fundy. It is estimated that its massive tidal swells can provide about 300 megawatts of potential energy from 8 small sites, enough to power roughly 100,000 homes. We will proceed cautiously to ensure the safest, most innovative use of our amazing resource. And a $250,000 strategic environmental assessment will help identify the potential impact of those devices on marine life, fisheries, and many other factors, and also set the stage for choosing an appropriate test site. Mr. Speaker, government is also investing $200,000 to start development of a water strategy that will develop security and sustainability of Nova Scotia's valuable water supply. And Conserve Nova Scotia will have a $10.2 million budget to help Nova Scotians learn to reduce their energy use, both to save money and to help the environment. Programs will focus on residential, commercial, industrial, and transportation sectors. Economic opportunities and our commitment to protecting our environment help to strengthen our communities and make Nova Scotia such a great place to live and to raise a family. But like elsewhere, we have our share of social issues. Existence of a problem does not define a society. The true test is how society responds to the problem. Here in Nova Scotia, we have learned from the Nunn Commission inquiry into the tragic death of Teresa McAvoy. As we announced earlier this year, the province has accepted all 34 recommendations of Justice Nunn, and this year we will invest more than $5 million to implement these recommendations. That's a good thing, isn't it? $3 million of this will focus on prevention and addressing the needs of families and youth in Nova Scotia. This includes hiring a senior official responsible for the development and initial implementation of a provincial child and youth strategy. These initiatives will help improve community safety by providing more supports for children, youth, and families. They will also help young people turn their lives around if they get in trouble with the law and before they become repeat offenders. Mr. Speaker, too many Nova Scotians, especially those in urban areas, do not feel safe on their own streets at night. It is a growing trend that cannot continue. As promised, this year, we will spend $7.5 million in the first year of a 4-year program that will put 250 new police officers on our streets. There you are, Minister. But not to call it down the end. But not him. Yeah, Kevin would have been up, yeah. And that's not all we are doing to make Nova Scotia streets and communities safer. A new public safety investigation unit will have the power to investigate complaints relating to prostitution, illegal drugs, liquor, and gaming. And, Mr. Speaker, we will continue the Rewards for Major Unsolved Crimes program, which encourages citizens to provide information that helps solve crime. Mr. Speaker, our society has made tremendous strides in the fight against drinking and driving, but there is more we can do to reduce the number of vehicle fatalities and injuries due to drunk driving. This year, we will introduce the Ignition Interlock program in Nova Scotia, a program that disables a vehicle from being driven if the driver has been drinking. I'm very happy to announce that this year we have earmarked $722,000 to implement the first year of the Ignition Interlock program in an effort to reduce the number of drinking-related tragedies on our roads and highways. Mr. Speaker, for all we have in common, Nova Scotians live in distinctive communities and come from a variety of diverse backgrounds. But wherever we come from and wherever we live, our sense of community is strong. We want to enhance that sense of community by, among other measures, investing in our arts and culture industry. This year, we will spend $410,000 more to nurture and support emerging arts and culture projects that have the potential to become export-ready products, to help existing established artists find new markets and to encourage new talent. In addition, we'll invest an additional $1 million to help address critical infrastructure needs in the Nova Scotia museum system and to further support community museums. Part of our commitment to our variety of diverse communities has been to make sure that Acadians and all Nova Scotians have access to provincial government services in both of Canada's official languages. In partnership with the federal government, this budget includes $688,000 to expand on the considerable progress that has been made in providing French language services over the past years. Mr. Speaker, one of many of our Executive Council responsibilities is that of the Office of Aboriginal Affairs. Last month, on behalf of the province, I had the honor to sign the framework agreement for the Made in Nova Scotia negotiation process with our First Nations. Mr. Speaker, this year we will provide more financial resources to the Office of Aboriginal Affairs to support the continuation of the important work with the Mi'kmaq, Nova Scotia Canada Tripartite Forum. The Office of African Nova Scotian Affairs will continue its good work on behalf of African Nova Scotians. In particular, the Cape Breton Satellite Office is now fully staffed and will begin its first full year of serving the public in 2007-2008. Mr. Speaker, we are entering the third year of our immigration strategy, and we will continue to promote and increase immigration to Nova Scotia. This year, the budget for the Office of Immigration will increase to $3.728 million to support our immigration strategy. We are very pleased with the progress. Between 2003 and 2006, the number of immigrants increased by 66%, from just over 1,500 to just over 2,500. And, Mr. Speaker, this year we will partner with employers experiencing skills shortages to strategically focus our Nova Scotia nominee program recruitment efforts. To enhance these efforts, 2 new nominee program officers will be hired to assist in recruitment and to help respond to the growing number of immigrants interested in living and working in our province. Mr. Speaker, like every budget, this one is about choices. We have made the best choice for Nova Scotia. We will continue to fight for fair treatment of Nova Scotia and recognition of our offshore accord as inviolable. Here. In the meantime, this budget allows us to protect and enhance the programs and services Nova Scotians hold dearest, and to continue reducing our debt without having to raise personal or business income tax and without cutting other programs. It is a budget that allows us to advance the goals of the new Nova Scotia by laying a solid and sound fiscal plan for the year ahead. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Order, please. The honourable member for Halifax Fairview.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I am honoured to rise for the 7th time as the finance critic of the official opposition to reply to the budget. Last year, I had the chance to do it twice. Mr. Speaker, I am sorry to have to begin my remarks the same way that I did last year, which is to acknowledge the personal health struggles of the Minister of Finance. And all we can do is offer you again our very best wishes and support to you and your family. In any other occupation, this would be a very private matter. Because of the position you hold, it becomes very public. And all we can do is wish you and your family our very, very best. And Mr. Speaker, I also want to note, as the Minister of Finance did, another absent colleague, the member for Colchester-Musquodoboit Valley, the Minister of Agriculture. He is also engaged in a struggle to regain his personal health. And if he is watching on TV tonight, we just want to let him know that we wish you all the best, and that we wish that you will return to the House at the very earliest possible opportunity. Mr. Speaker, let me say immediately that we in the NDP caucus have not decided, and we certainly will not say today, whether or not we intend to vote for or against the budget. Mr. Speaker, we are acutely conscious of the fact that it is a minority government, that to defeat the budget would involve a general election. Less than a year after the last general election, we are acutely conscious of the fact that it seems virtually certain there will be a federal election within a matter of weeks. And so these decisions are not ones to be taken lightly. And what we will do is we will do our duty. Each member of our caucus will study the budget, reflect on the budget, talk to their constituents, speak to the ministers during the estimates debate, and at the end of the process, not at the beginning of the process, but at the end, we will make our decision for what we think is best for the people of Nova Scotia. Because we are, Nova Scotians are, looking for some evidence of a direction that has so far been lacking from this government since it was elected less than a year ago. And after this budget, we are, I'm sorry to say, still waiting for that sense of direction, of what it is that this government wants to be and what it is, the path that it holds out for the people of this province. Now, Mr. Speaker, it would be an odd budget indeed that did not contain a number of positive measures. It is not possible to run over 1,000 government programs and spend $8 billion and not do some good things. So let me begin then by acknowledging some of the things that are in this budget that we like, that we support, and that were part of our platform in the election held less than a year ago. We continue to be ready and willing to offer good ideas to the government, and we are glad to see that they are picking up on at least some of them. We're pleased to see the volunteer firefighter tax credit, the colorectal cancer screening program, although I'll have more to say about that later, the Nova Scotia student bursary, tuition freeze and reduction, the Buy Local program, agricultural stabilization funding, the home repair program grant increase, caregiver support allowance, elevators in seniors' homes, Mr. Speaker. And I know there's one in particular that the Leader of the Opposition has in mind. More police officers, Ignition Interlock program, the continuing rollout of more long-term care beds. Mr. Speaker, all of those things form part of the NDP platform in the last election. And we're very glad to see, indeed, that they form part of this year's budget. And let me make particular note, Mr. Speaker, of a major platform commitment of the New Democratic Party, not just last year, but over the past several years, and that is to remove the provincial portion of the HST from home heating fuel. That program is fully funded in this year's budget, Mr. Speaker, and that is, of course, a very good thing. Mr. Speaker, we also note a number of measures promised in the Conservative election program on which the government is today failing to deliver. And Mr. Speaker, if this government wants the people of Nova Scotia to believe that it is the fault of the federal government, that is quite simply nonsense. In this budget, there is $440 million of new revenue that they did not have at budget time last year, Mr. Speaker. The ministers and the premier's tour of the province talking about the need to break their election promises turns out to have been simply an illusion. The money is there, the money was there. It seems that they were simply playing with the expectations of Nova Scotians, wanting to dampen those expectations so that they would not expect very much. There is $440 million of new spending in this budget, and only $79 million of that is due to the equalization issue that has attracted so much attention since the federal budget was delivered on Monday. Mr. Speaker, I want to make particular note of one Conservative campaign promise that is not being kept in this budget, and that is what the Conservatives call the Working Families Pharmacare program. Now, Mr. Speaker, that is, any member of this legislature knows, that is a great need in this province. Although it may not have a high public profile, any of us who have constituency offices, in other words, all of us, know about the heart-rending situations that people find themselves in when they are unable to afford necessary medication for themselves and their family. And in the last election, the Conservatives promised that they would do something about that. And as many of the Conservative promises were, it was a multi-year program. So people weren't actually going to see the benefit for a number of years. But in the first year, namely this year, they forecast the cost at $25 million to start the program. In this budget today, Mr. Speaker, the government allocates to that program $5 million, and this is what the people of Nova Scotia won't read in any of the budget documents. That is entirely for development work. During this fiscal year, not one single Nova Scotia working family will have their medication paid for under this program. The $5 million is to pay for computer programming and other similar development work so that the program might be put in place sometime in the future. There is no Working Families Pharmacare program in this year's budget, Mr. Speaker, and I think it is very important to point that out. It was a major part of the Conservative election platform last year, and it has disappeared from the budget. Mr. Speaker, and it simply is not the fault of the federal government. The Premier announced that he was going to have to break some of his election promises before the federal budget was delivered. So it would seem odd for him now to blame the federal budget as the reason why he has to break those promises. Oh, and I know, Mr. Speaker, the Premier says he's not breaking his promises, he's simply deferring them, meaning that he's not going to do them when he promised he would do them, simply at some future time. Mr. Speaker, I think it's very clear to Nova Scotians what it means to have a deferred election promise. No doubt it will pop up again just in time for the next election. Mr. Speaker, let me turn then to the issue that has attracted so much attention this week, and that is equalization and the Atlantic Accord. What is clear now, and must be clear to every member of this House, is that we have a federal Conservative government that is not sympathetic to the history and aspirations of Atlantic Canada. The choice given to Nova Scotia in Monday's budget turns out to have really been no choice at all. In figures supplied by the Department of Finance today as part of the budget background, it shows that the difference between the two options presented to Nova Scotia is $921.3 million over 5 years. $921 million of difference between the two options. So needless to say, the government of Nova Scotia has chosen the option that provides more money rather than less. But let's make no mistake about it. This option means the end of the Atlantic Accord. And that is precisely what the Prime Minister and the Federal Finance Minister want. Now, on Monday night, our Premier said it was the fault of nameless bureaucrats in Ottawa who never liked the Accord. That's not true. No one could have listened to the Finance Minister this week and believed that somehow he'd been hoodwinked, that somehow he was the prisoner of bureaucrats who forced him to do something he wouldn't want to do. Stephen Harper and Jim Flaherty are nobody's prisoners. They are the prisoner only of an ideology that is not sympathetic to our aspirations, Mr. Speaker. The federal finance minister says they want to have their cake and eat it too. Yesterday, he said to the New Brunswick finance minister, who raised the possibility of having a similar accord for New Brunswick, it was, quote, not a chance, end of quote. The federal finance minister says he does not believe that these natural resource accords are good for Canada. So no one should be under any illusion about where this decision came from. It did not come from bureaucrats. It came from the Prime Minister, the Finance Minister, and the Federal Conservative Party. Because the error that our government made, Mr. Speaker, when dealing with the Atlantic Accord is treating federal-provincial relations as an event rather than as a process. And what they left out of the equation was that over time the players change. And although we reached the Atlantic Accord, very influential people were not convinced by it. Among them, premiers of a number of the other provinces. who didn't like it, never liked it, still don't like it, and kept working to eliminate it. But also, Mr. Speaker, unconvinced by it all was Stephen Harper. And when he has had a chance to follow through on his own promises, he has broken that promise as well. Now, Mr. Speaker, those of us who oppose Conservatives federally and provincially know that if there's one thing Conservatives are good at, it is the spin machine. It is making things appear, putting appearances above reality. And many people have been on the receiving end of the Harris government spin machine, of which Jim Flaherty was such an integral part. And Mr. Speaker, you know what the most uncomfortable thing of all must be for our Nova Scotia Conservatives is now we all here in this House and in this province are on the receiving end of the federal Conservative spin machine. Because their message, not to us, their message to the rest of Canada is that they are respecting the Atlantic Accord. They are leaving it entirely in place. They are not touching one comma of the Atlantic Accord. What they don't say, of course, Mr. Speaker, is that they are so changing the rules and the context in which that accord operates that for all practical purposes it has been torn up and left on the floor. I have heard Prime Minister Harper deliver that message. I have heard the federal finance minister deliver that message, and I have heard Nova Scotia's Conservative members of Parliament deliver that message. Their message to us and to the rest of the country is that we're trying to have our cake and eat it too. There is not a chance that any of this is going to change. And what's going to happen now? Now the federal government will dangle money in front of the Nova Scotia government dealing with the Atlantic Accord, saying, look, there's some money for gateways, not for your gateway, but there's some money in the budget, potentially for gateways. Now you better be good or you're not going to get any of it. That's the message now in the future. Now that they've destroyed the Atlantic Accord, they're going to try and keep us quiet and say, if you don't behave, you're not going to get any money for the Atlantic Gateway. Because our province wants $400 million, and the federal government has allocated a little over $1 billion. Do you think we're going to get $400 million of a total amount of money of $1 billion without fighting tooth and nail for it, fighting the Port of Montreal, fighting British Columbia and Vancouver wants to establish a Pacific Gateway? Mr. Speaker, but that's what they'll dangle in front of us now that they've destroyed the Atlantic Accord, is money for the Atlantic Gateway. And Mr. Speaker, if there is one thing that the provincial government has to take from all this, and that is that the old approach is not working. The old approach to federal-provincial fiscal relations is not working because the Atlantic Accord was the result of a happy coincidence of circumstances where we had two Atlantic premiers who wanted a deal, a federal Liberal government that wanted to deliver the deal, elections looming, and so they entered into the accord. But what they didn't take into account was that that federal prime minister would leave the scene very shortly thereafter, Mr. Speaker, and the government taking the place of the Liberal government was considerably less sympathetic to the goals of the Atlantic Accord. And what we are saying to the Premier is you must take a position in favor of Nova Scotia and take it to its logical conclusion, which is what the Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador has done. Mr. Speaker, if a Conservative majority government is elected in Ottawa in the next federal election, which could be only weeks away, the Atlantic Accord is dead and gone forever. Forever, Mr. Speaker, because neither the Prime Minister, nor the Federal Finance Minister, nor Nova Scotia's Conservative members of Parliament have any interest in undoing what they have just done. The words of the Federal Finance Minister, quote, not a chance. Not a chance. End of quote. He says the door is closed. It's over. It's done. He is not going to discuss this issue anymore. Mr. Speaker, And so we ask the Premier to have the courage to say to Stephen Harper that he is not welcome in this province in the next federal election. We ask him to help to defeat those Nova Scotia Conservative members of Parliament, Conservative candidates, who will make sure that if they go to Ottawa, that the deal stays dead. We ask him not to stand on a stage with Stephen Harper and ask Nova Scotia voters to vote for a government that would do that. Danny Williams says he's going to do that. Why can't our government do that? After the federal Conservatives ripped up the Accord, what did our Premier say? He was going to call them. He was going to call them. He had a conference call with the members of Parliament. Apparently it didn't have any effect, Mr. Speaker, because the very same day, Nova Scotian members of Parliament said they delivered the line from the briefing notes, which is the Atlantic Accord is being entirely respected. And that's the only thing we're going to hear from them, Mr. Speaker. It is time that Nova Scotians sent a message to federal Conservative candidates that this is wrong, it must stop, we must defeat them. And if the Premier isn't willing to say that, Mr. Speaker, then I guess we know where he really stands. We will work with this government on a new approach to federal-provincial relations. Federal-provincial fiscal relations affect us all in Nova Scotia. It is not something where one party should be saying, we'll do it alone, we'll talk to our friends, we'll get on the phone, Mr. Speaker. It is not working. It is clearly not working. When the federal government could do such a thing to us, to rip up the Atlantic Accord, and then have our representatives in Ottawa, instead of taking our message to Ottawa, they're delivering Ottawa's message back to us, which is, quote, not a chance. We are ready to work with this government, but they must stop trying to do it on their own. They must stop this process of trying to do things behind the scenes, talking to their supposed friends in Ottawa, saying, oh, well, that's how they will get more done. They've tried that, Mr. Speaker. It is not working. It is not working. Mr. Speaker, we are glad to see that the provincial government here has not followed the lead of the Liberals in New Brunswick. I think it came as a shock to most of us last week when they delivered their budget with higher taxes, less spending on roads, and a really serious exploration of privatized health care, Mr. Speaker. I think perhaps the Liberals here in Nova Scotia need to have a word with them over there in New Brunswick. What I am afraid of is that the Liberals in Nova Scotia have the same sort of agenda. When their colleagues next door had a chance, what did they do? They raised taxes, cut spending on roads, and started down the road of privatized health care. But, Mr. Speaker, let no one say that this budget does not contain any tax increases, because it does. It very clearly does. There is an across-the-board increase in user fees. Every single fee charged by government is going to go up 6.8% effective immediately. And you know, Mr. Speaker, that is probably the thing that the ordinary Nova Scotian in the Tim Hortons tomorrow is going to notice about this budget. Is that every single thing that they ask for from their provincial government is going to cost more starting tomorrow. Tell you something else they will notice, Mr. Speaker. Civil servants in Nova Scotia will immediately see a cut in their take-home pay because of the increase in the pension contribution. Now, Mr. Speaker, we know that pensions need to be properly funded, but what are people actually going to notice out of this budget? This budget contains no big ideas. It contains no vision, no particular direction. It is what I can only describe as a gray budget, colorless, taking $440 million of new revenue and spreading a little bit around everywhere. A little bit for everything, a lot for nothing. But what will Nova Scotians notice tomorrow? The next civil service paycheck will be cut. The next time a Nova Scotian goes to seek a service from their government, it will cost them more. And as we have said so many times before on this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, user fees are the most regressive form of revenue raising the government can pursue because the fee is same for everybody. And if you have to pay the same fee, for example, for a driver's license on an income of $8 or $10 or $12 or $15,000, it's going to hurt you a lot more than the exact same fee charged to somebody earning $100,000, Mr. Speaker. It hits poor Nova Scotians hardest, Mr. Speaker, and today the government is raising tens of millions of new dollars in user fees. And that brings me then, Mr. Speaker, to what the Leader of the Opposition has referred to as the ticking time bomb in this budget, and that is healthcare spending, or lack of healthcare spending, Mr. Speaker. The words in the budget were interesting, Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Finance's words. I'll see if I can find them because the words are very interesting. Just what he said, so this year, he says, quote, so this year, oh, here we go, quote, in this budget we have to balance not only the needs within the health system, but also the competing and equally important needs of all government services. So this year we have limited the increase in healthcare spending to 5.3%, end of quote. Now, Mr. Speaker, of all the reasons to offer for limiting healthcare spending, that strikes me as a peculiar one. They're not doing it because that fits within the program delivery model. It's not because they think that that's enough. It's because other departments need more. And as everybody knows, the Department of Health is a voracious dragon that chews up an ever-increasing percentage of the provincial budget. But, Mr. Speaker, what that sounds like very much is the government has simply taken a number out of the air and said, Department of Health, whatever it is you need, we're going to give you a number that's based on what other departments need. And, Mr. Speaker, in case anyone in the House thinks that I'm crying wolf over this or that I'm exaggerating by calling it a ticking time bomb, let me quote from the President of Doctors Nova Scotia, who said a very short time ago that the increase in healthcare fundings means this is, quote, not a healthcare budget. It means that we are going to fall further behind in healthcare. There are no new programs, and what we can expect to see, among other things, as a result of this budget is longer waiting lists, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that is not me talking. That's the President of Doctors Nova Scotia, who perhaps knows a thing or two about the real impact of a budget like this on the healthcare sector. As a result of this arbitrary limitation on funding of the Department of Health, we can expect to see longer waiting lists. We will not see any improvement in emergency room wait times. We will not see any improvement in emergency room closures. This kind of increase, unfortunately, means that the government can't even maintain the status quo. And we all know that this is the #1 issue in the minds of Nova Scotian. It tends to dominate this legislature, tends to dominate question period. Things are not only not going to get better in healthcare as a result of this budget, they are going to get worse. Now, Mr. Speaker, we all know that the rate of increase in healthcare spending cannot continue to go up. The healthcare budget cannot continue to grow by 8% every year without something giving.